Welcome to today's Global Connections program. I'm Bill Miller. Today we're going to be taking a look and visiting with a person who's very involved with providing psychological assistance and assistance in many other areas too, to people who've been traumatized because of earthquakes, cyclones, tornadoes, and a variety of other natural disasters. My guest today is Dr. Judy Kuriansky. Dr. Kuriansky is finally called Dr. Judy for her many years of giving wise advice on radio and TV. She's on the faculty at Columbia University Teachers College. She is also well known at the United Nations as an advocate about mutual health and well-being, and as a non-governmental organization representative for the International Association of Applied Psychology and the World Council for Psychotherapy. Dr. Kuriansky is very well known at the UN and really internationally. She is also, I didn't mention, but I will, she is a very prolific author. She has written a wide range of books, right. And I think we'll just share them right now. One is Living in an Environmentally Traumatized World, and this is certainly one that I think many of us would find very applicable at this point in our lives. And the other one is The Psychological Aspects of a Deadly Epidemic, What Ebola Has Taught Us About Holistic Healing. And this was one that she wrote, really, I guess, over 4 years ago. Dr. Judy, after you went to Sierra Leone during the Ebola epidemic. But first things first, welcome to today's Global Connections program. I got so engrossed with all of your stuff here. To see you. We just almost forgot to tell people who you were, or who you are.
Thank you.
But anyway, welcome to today's Global Connections program. That's a good entree, I think. You did go to Sierra Leone at a very dangerous time. Most people were trying to leave, and you're trying to get in.
Right. I did. I wasn't afraid. People did say, "Are you?" You know, even if they lived there or had friends there or family, they were afraid to go. But that's what I do a lot around the world. I had been to Sierra Leone, in fact, many years before during the AIDS, when that was really very prescient. So, and I'd done work on the radio because I've been on the radio for so many years, giving advice to people about their life and how to feel better. Dr. Judy, what do I do? My boyfriend left me. Dr. Judy, what do I do? All those kinds of questions. So I went and spent time on the radio giving advice to people about how to stay healthy. And during Ebola, I, for years, have been doing these psychosocial techniques and workshops and trainings that we're going to see a video about. And so my friends and other colleagues from Israel and other organizations on the ground, we had meetings at UNICEF, and really I did some trainings and helped the local people help the children who were very, of course, traumatized, and they really need some support. They're crying, they have nightmares, all of these kinds of things. So I did do that. And I'm glad you mentioned those books, because the ones I did before when I was on the radio were the Complete Guide to Healthy Relationship, and I didn't bring those here, and to dating. And people often ask me, Dr. Judy, you're writing about healthy relationships, you've been on the radio for years giving advice to people, and now you're in Ebola and doing work around the world and, at the UN, really consulting and helping governments, and how do they mix? And what's the connection? It's totally connected. A personal connection, like for having a healthy relationship, like I wrote about in the Guide to a Healthy Relationship. What is in there? Cooperation, being able to compromise, and being able to communicate. 3 big issues, and those are the same things that work here at the UN. You have to have cooperation, you have to have compromise, and you have to have communication. So there's a big similarity between that work and international work.
Exactly. Well, tell us a little bit about the first video. You have a montage, a collection of some really interesting video shots in different parts of the world. What are we going to see in about 30 seconds?
You're going to see the work that I do around the world to train community people and teachers and how to work with children when there's a natural disaster or an epidemic or any kind of crisis. And you'll see the techniques, the simple techniques that I use that are totally effective for building up resilience and empowerment and community connection, those 3 things. And particularly for children, you'll see they need to have fun. They need to have enjoyment. So these are simple techniques: throwing a ball to learn your dream, getting together to make a web. You'll see a few of those examples in St. Martin, where I just was, and the anniversary of the hurricane, which devastated the Caribbean.
Hurricane Irma?
Irma was the worst. And so in St. Martin, I went with local partners and the the local government there, the ministry. And so you'll see that technique. You'll see in Jordan, where I was, helping train community workers to work with the children, the Syrian refugees. And then you'll see snippets of Iran. When I was in Iran, there was a major earthquake people don't really know that much about, because not that many people in the world, get to go there, where I was also helping children. So you'll see different countries where I was doing these trainings, and very exciting techniques that are so helpful and so uplifting for people.
Very good. Well, let's take about 4 minutes. We'll go to the video and we'll come back and talk about it.
Okay. Disasters of all kinds happening all over the world destroy lives and livelihoods and cause deep emotional trauma. But simple exercises based on sound psychological principles help in the healing. It's important to focus on 3 goals: building resilience, empowerment, and reconnecting with community. And especially important for children is joy and fun. On the first anniversary of the devastating Hurricane Irma, I went with my team to the Caribbean island of St. Martin's, since research shows that anniversaries re-trigger the trauma. I had been to the island before, ironically right before the hurricane, as part of the Caribbean Wellbeing Conference to train teachers, parents, and others in calmer time. After the hurricane, the need was more pressing. Over 5 days, we used many techniques from my toolbox, developed over years and used in many cultures. My team from the UN-accredited NGO, the International Association of Applied Psychology, partnered with local organizations like Art Saves Lives and the National Institute of the Arts, supported by the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sport. Always adapting to the culture, the head of the Department of Culture, Clara Reyes, taught a traditional dance with song. Following a 3-tier train-the-trainers model, we, as the master trainers, taught the teachers, who then do the exercises with the children.
Just lie down and pay attention to your breath.
The necessary steps to get over it by developing a sense of empowerment. I'm strong, I can deal with this, I can cope. A sense of resilience, which means bouncing back from the disaster or the trauma and dealing with your own, therefore, sense of self.
Pay attention.
Many other activities built resilience, empowerment, and connection.
To everything what I do.
I have never attended a workshop like this, especially after the hurricane we had. We really needed something which will boost our own courage and strength.
Had a great time. The children were very receptive to the classes and the lessons that you guys taught us, which is something we're excited about sharing at other schools.
That is something that we're missing in the school system. It's always academic, but we forget to put a little bit of fun in it.
My name is Jennifer.
The same techniques have been applied in other cultures and settings, like in Jordan with Syrian refugees, and to a group of orphans living in a Buddhist temple in Vietnam that I went to after a serious typhoon. Similar techniques were also applied on a mission to Kermanshah, Iran, a few weeks after the earthquake there, training some students and staff of the Red Crescent Society to help children. The same approach has been effective previously in Japan, China, the United States, and Haiti after natural disasters, and even in Sierra Leone during the Ebola epidemic. In every setting, the basic message is that hope is alive. The theme of the song my music partner Russell Daisy and I wrote.
Hope is alive. We gotta laugh together, love each other. Hope is alive. I help you, you help me. Hope is alive. He helps her, she helps him. Hope is alive. We gotta dance together. Hope is alive. We gotta rock together. Hope is alive. We gotta sing together, sing together. Oh, he's alive. We gotta laugh.
Dr. Judy, that was really interesting. That was fantastic. Let me just ask you, can anyone learn this? I know without spending 8 years getting a PhD or something like that, but can you train other people to do this?
Absolutely. That's the point, really, Bill. Right at the United Nations, what we want is capacity building, because there aren't that many people, who can really help, especially in the midst of a disaster. Everybody's suffering. And then also sustainability, so it can continue. So if I'm there, I'm training people to do what I do in very simple techniques. They're very profound psychologically. They have real reason from my therapeutic point of view and from psychology in general. But they're community workers, they're teachers, parents even, leaders, even peer leaders, kids who are identified as leaders. And so they can easily learn. That's how I designed it all, so that they can learn and pass it on. That's the point.
Very important.
I mean, if you're throwing a ball and asking kids what their dream is, anybody could do that. The trainer needs to know that has a deep meaning for people feeling acknowledged and recognized and feeling like they have hope for the future.
Exactly. Well, you're watching Global Connections Television, which is a privately funded, independently produced program. The opinions expressed on Global Connections are solely those of the moderator and his guest. We'd invite our viewers to go to our website at www.globalconnectionstelevision.com to view previous programs. Also, if you're involved with a PBS or community access television station, or perhaps an educational institution that has an intra-campus television hookup, or you just have a website and you like our shows and would like to share them, please feel free to do so. Global Connections Television is provided free of charge as a public service to help people better understand international issues and how they impact our lives. Today we're talking with Dr. Judy Kuriansky, who has been very involved in providing really psychological assistance to literally thousands of people who have been affected by earthquakes, cyclones, hurricanes, and a wide range of other natural disasters. Dr. Judy, this is a very important area, and so often we see the devastation that takes place from Hurricane Irma or something. We see the actual physical devastation, the way Puerto Rico was scoured, the Virgin Islands, American Virgin Islands were scoured, other countries, the earthquake in Iran. But the psychological damage can be so devastating. I'm
so glad you said that, Bill, because that's what I've been advocating about. I'm a professor at Columbia. I told you I was on the radio and TV talking about relationships on a popular music station. But being here at the UN for now 17 years, I've seen that mental health has really grown and expanded and been recognized in the way that you have. After disasters, we are concerned about validly, how far is the hospital from the water? Where are the houses? Are they being built properly? These are structural resilience, we call them, and practical things that are important. But the emotional issues, like you said, are so important too. Mental health and psychosocial support and well-being has just gotten recognized at the UN here in a very big way, and in many other ways around the world that we're going to see in the video I put together for you. So the emotional issues research has shown not only are immediate, you're traumatized about what's going on, even in life in general. And then these things last. The fears, the anxieties, you hear, some crack happen, and then you have this, revival of the emotion. Anniversary reactions are so important. So mental health has really been totally become a priority now. The Secretary General has been talking about it at the United Nations. The Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed, has talked about it and said how important it's a priority. We now have ministers around the world talking about it. There's been meetings. The United for Mental Health, led by Alicia London, who used to work for the Prince in UK, Prince William. She has led now a big organization about it. I've done so many events here at the UN to raise the profile, poverty and mental health, women's issues in mental health, climate change and mental health. And there have been so many ambassadors who have come to these meetings and spoken about it. So the issue has really become major, fortunately.
Thank goodness.
The time is right, and it's called time to act on mental health.
We're going to see it right now. We're going to see advances in mental health, and we go to the video and come back and talk about it.
victim or target of cyberbullying attacks, I felt depressed, anxious, and developed suicidal thoughts. I live with anxiety every single day.
I tried to take my own life by going out of my 9-story bedroom window.
At the age of 5, I took a knife to my stomach. And at the age of 12, I tried to set my family house on fire.
The number of young people suffering from depression, bullying, and other mental health and behavioral problems is staggering, up to 1 in 5. Many suffer in what I call the 3 S's: shame, stigma, and silence. But awareness and improvement is happening in the public, for governments, and even here at the United Nations. Alexa, I'm depressed.
I'm so sorry you are feeling that way. Please know that you're not alone. There are people who can help you.
This event about applications of artificial intelligence for mental health, co-sponsored by UN member states and my NGO accredited at the United Nations, is one of many recently highlighting the issue. Others addressed achieving poverty eradication, infectious diseases, rural women, challenges women face to achieve economic and political power, and honoring a female Olympian for overcoming cancer. Major international figures are supportive, like the UN Secretary General.
Health encompasses both physical and mental well-being. Yet for too long, mental health has been mostly an afterthought, despite its overwhelming impacts on individuals and communities.
And Her Majesty, the Queen of Belgium, who is a psychologist.
We need to integrate mental health strategies into a broader strategies for building resilience among vulnerable people.
The Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, gave this message at the conference of my NGO accredited at the United Nations, the International Association of Applied Psychology.
In Budget 2017, we included major support for mental health initiatives across Canada. We're committed to fighting stigma and helping people across the country get the mental health care they need.
The UN Mission of Canada, along with Bahrain and Belgium, now head the Group of Friends of Mental Health and Wellbeing, with many UN missions as members, and a partnership with Lady Gaga's Born This Way Foundation.
I invented myself, Lady Gaga, and curated my life to be an expression of my pain. This is how I overcame my depression.
Many firsts have happened. The first meeting of ministers supporting mental health. The first time mental health was an event during the UN General Assembly. The first time mental health was a topic at Davos, the famous World Economic Forum.
If we could tackle the stigma, that was one thing that would allow these mental health charities to do more of their work and be able to reach more people and allow people to come forward.
The first meeting of professionals in Morocco focusing on children's mental health, and the major global compact on safe, orderly, and regular migration that was adopted by governments in Morocco. Resolutions were passed at the United Nations about universal health coverage, making access to care available to all. And mental health was officially named as the 5th non-communicable disease, along with heart and respiratory diseases, diabetes, and cancer, thanks to efforts of the World Health Organization. The 2018 Lancet Commission released a major report on global mental health and sustainable development. The Second Union of Mental Health Summit in Moscow brought together international mental health leaders, where I delivered the final declaration.
For the benefit of individuals and societies throughout the world.
More attention is being paid to women's issues, with the UN Secretary General promising equal appointments of women to men. More attention to youth, to wellness at work, with the Secretary General's launch of mental health services to the staff. And attention to disabilities in a UN resolution about mental health and disability, and this film debut at the United Nations. Money matters. In the country of Georgia, a major summit was held about innovative financing. And finally, the private sector is stepping up to the plate.
It's a real pleasure to announce today that we are going to commit to an additional £200 million, $260 million over the next few years.
A major trigger for all this was the historic inclusion of mental health and well-being in the UN Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development, thanks to the campaign of then Ambassador Caleb Otto of Palau and myself, leading the Psychology Coalition of NGOs accredited at the UN and getting support from all the UN member states to put mental health and well-being at the heart of the global goals. Integral to well-being is happiness. Signs like these are popping up publicly to rate if you're happy or not. A meeting about happiness from the perspective of all disciplines was held in St. Louis, and the United Arab Emirates is leading the way, promoting happiness and well-being with the Sheikh's book, the First Minister of Happiness, happiness roundtables at the United Nations, and happiness dialogues at the World Government Summit in Dubai. The theme is celebrated in this song my music partner Russell Daisy and I wrote.
Happy people, happy planet. A baby's born on a perfect morning. That's what I call happiness. A summer shower that comes that morning. That's what I call happiness. Birds and bees and trees and flowers.
Dr. Judy, another great video. Thank you so much. I'm a big fan of B-roll and videos, as you can tell, as you are too. Would you like to add a few more comments to that before we go to the last one?
I think that what's really important that we just saw is in how many different ways that mental health is being profiled. You know, WHO, the World Health Organization, always said there is no health without mental health. But now we're seeing that's true. It's your body, your mind, your emotional feelings. I want everybody to pay attention to their emotional feelings because you know what? The statistics even show that 4 out of 5 people or 3 out of 4, they float around statistics that are so high of people in our environment have emotional issues or will at sometimes have them. And young people are suffering because they're always on their machines instead of talking to people. And so I think I'm so happy that finally we're paying attention to this through all the events that you saw there.
Mm-hmm. And now you wrote a song, or you co-wrote a song, I should say. Tell us about that. We're going to listen to it in just a moment.
At the end of that video, you saw happiness. Well, I'm going. Originally Bhutan promoted happiness. Now the United Arab Emirates has been doing that, and they have a minister, as you saw in the video. And so I've done many events at the United Nations about the International Day of Happiness, and going back to Dubai because they're doing this. They're having the dialogue on happiness, which is wonderful. And so my music partner and I, Russell Daisy, wrote a song called Happy People, Happy Planet. And we have played it at the United Nations and performed it at the United Nations with really every ambassadors and delegates and people in the public and all these people, hundreds of people in the big conference rooms, singing along because that's what we care about at the UN. People, planet, and profitability and peace in the world and partnerships. Those are the 5 Ps. Right.
Okay, great. We're going to listen to the song right now.
Happy people, happy planet. Happy people, happy planet. A baby's born on a perfect morning. That's what I call happiness. A summer shower that comes that morning. That's what I call happiness. Birds and bees and trees and flowers, talks with friends that last for hours. Being there with you, that's what I call happiness. That's what I call happiness. That's what I call happiness. That's what I call happiness.
Very good. You may have another career as a songwriter.
Well,
you may want
I've been playing music
prolific
for a
author, and now you can do that.
Right.
Well, we're down, unfortunately. Thank you for bringing all these wonderful videos, but that cut down on our talk time. But in the last minute or so that we have left, what has been the highlight of all this? You have several years of being involved in this, really providing tremendous psychological assistance to literally tens of thousands of people around the world. You've been in some very dangerous areas, but what has been the most memorable part of it? I'm sure there may be 20 or 30 things, but is there one?
The most memorable part to me is the smiles on people's faces when they finally get a chance to be themselves, to talk about their feelings and to share with someone else and to have a little bit of stress relief in the fun activities that we do. But this is why connection, people to people, human to human, saying, I feel, and fill in the blank. The joy that happens when people can say how they feel, and then when they can play a game with someone that brings out those feelings and then share with another person, because from all my years of psychology, what matters is to know you're not the only one with your feelings. If you share them, you feel better about them. And there is always some way and someone who can help. That's the whole essence of what resilience is about. And I see it happening here at the UN, thank goodness, and it's happening around the world. And just smiling, because if I smile at you, you had to smile back.
It's very true. Well, this is certainly a very important part of the human makeup.
Yes.
When we need to focus more on the psychological as well as the physical. We have to do both. But anyway, thank you for leading the way in many areas. But Dr. Judy Kuriansky, I want to thank you so very much for a very interesting and very informative program. I'm Bill Miller. Thank you for joining us today on Global Connections Television.